The Kaspa team has just unveiled some truly impressive tech that I think is going to have some pretty interesting implications. However, I did also want to take a look at some of the kind of fundamental metrics that we are also seeing through the Kaspa ecosystem. This is a bit of a mixed story because we continue to see the Kaspa team ship insane iterations to the Kaspa protocol. The technology itself seems to be kind of head and shoulders above what we kind of have out of this kind of traditional blockchain technology. But they are also kind of fighting up like a tech hill, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that exist within blockchain that currently don't really have that same effect within Kaspa because they're effectively redoing an entire system. But with this new system, we are starting to see some of the fruits of this increased tech that we are seeing. So I want to talk about all of that today. There's a lot to talk about. The team has confirmed a pretty impressive new development that they are adding to the Kaspa network. So I want to talk about that specifically. We are also going to talk about price too, because we are seeing Kaspa price being in a pretty interesting position. We could see potentially a run out at a breakout over the next coming days, maybe even up to a week or two. We'll have to see, given the kind of precarious time of the year that we are in. There is always the possibility that we do see a little bit of a negative move to the downside. We'll talk about what all of that looks like as well. Let's just go on ahead and we'll dive right on in. First off though, I did want to take a quick look at the market because we can see the market overall is looking green today. We see Kaspa here at up 1.4% today, but you can see that's kind of lagging what we're seeing out of the rest of the market. We're seeing it actually lagging even Bitcoin, which is up 1.6%. And then we have a lot of others kind of in the 5 to 8% range. One in particular you can see here is Ena. We have been doing some trading on Ena if you've been following along on the channel. It's been really, really good progress so far. Here you can see we have the Ena trade rolling 333% with $400 made currently. So this has been a really nice move. You can see we have that take profit up here at about that 77-cent range. We'll see if we get there. I am monitoring this trade closely to see if we maybe get rejected kind of in this region, because it is possible given that we have run into some resistance here in the past. But I do think that we may have some of that momentum to get all the way up there. So we'll track that. There is also always the possibility that we maybe just take half right now and set the remaining to break even so we can lock in some profits for that trade, which is always a good thing to do in crypto. When you see those profits, you definitely should be taking them. But if you are interested, I do have a whole bunch of different trades going. We actually have a trade open on Bitcoin as well. You can see here up 40% currently, already realized some profit here as well. So that's been pretty good so far. The Bitcoin trades are always pretty nice to play. You can see we had a really nice kind of bounce off of that line as we kind of saw that we weren't going to be rejected at this kind of lower resistance range. We did pull an entry in here, and now we'll just kind of see how high we can get. As I mentioned, we have already secured some profit, so we'll actually probably go ahead and will serve as a reminder for me to move our stop loss up to break even, because no reason to let a winning trade turn into a losing trade. So we'll do that. However, going back into Kaspa specifically, I might be looking to be pulling a trade on Kaspa here relatively as well. You could probably see fairly clearly what we're looking at here, just kind of based on what we've got on the screen. We have had a pretty strong descending trend line that we have run into repeatedly over the past, well, let's see, when would this be? July. So about 6 weeks, we've kind of run into this kind of repeated trend line that we have been kind of bouncing against. You also can see though we have held up kind of the bottom of the end here at about 8 cents fairly consistently as well. So, we are kind of getting to the point of this wedge. We'll have to see, something is going to have to give at some point. Will the 8-cent level hold, or will this trend line serve as kind of too much to break? And that is kind of what I was referring to earlier, that we could see some potential moves to the downside. This is generally, I think, what it would look like. So you can see here, obviously we have this 8-cent range. Hopefully we can hold that 8-cent support. If we cannot, we have probably another fairly clear support down around the 7.2 to 7.5 cent range. And then you can see here we have kind of the swing lows with even some wicks getting down into the 6 cents, but 6.3 kind of being more of the consistent level here. So if we were to continue and we would see that this trend line is kind of proving too difficult to break, we would probably expect this to continue to bleed through this level of support, and then potentially even through this level of support, and maybe even all the way back down to 6 cents. We really have not seen a move below this 6 cent range for a very long time. So I'm imagining that this is kind of where we would probably find a bottom. Again, the only reason I'm kind of mentioning this is because we are in September. September's generally not a great month for crypto generally, as well as Bitcoin specifically. And as we know, Bitcoin leads the market. So if Bitcoin does start to move down, we would need to see or we would expect to see, I guess we should say, a pretty strong move back here coming down to the downside. And what we haven't seen so far, or I guess what we're seeing right now, is we're pretty close to a level of support. So if we were to see a larger pullback happen, the odds of us seeing a further move back to the downside is probably relatively high. So that's just another thing that I wanted to take a quick look at and just kind of prepare you for. We could be at a really, really great position for a potentially bullish move. Again, we are kind of assuming that we are kind of running back into this descending trend line. If we can break through it, probably going to be a really nice move on our way. If it can't, then potentially we are at that point where we look at breaking that 8-cent range. So again, just kind of depending on how I would specifically trade this, we'll just kind of do a quick little charting here, and then we'll kind of move on to the news of the day and some of the stuff that we've been seeing out of Kaspa. But I think what we would expect to see here is we expect to see a break of this trend line. We'd want it to come back to this trend line and then bounce off. If we saw a move like that, that is what I would consider to be a really, really strong move here. And this is kind of at this point when we were seeing it retest and start to kind of get rejected off of this trend line. Potentially we even see something kind of like this happening where we come up, get rejected, bounce up, come back. Maybe we even see kind of a bounce off of both the trend line and the support level. And then we see a move like that. That would probably even be better. And that would be kind of a pretty clear textbook entry there. So that's ultimately what I'm looking for. I'm not super interested in entering into a Kaspa trade right now, looking for kind of the highest likelihood of success. And for that, we would need to see that break first. So if we don't see this break, and then we do see this kind of start to break through here, there's potentially even shorts in order, but I do get nervous shorting a project like Kaspa because we know that it can move really, really wildly, super quick. And so shorting something like that is generally a bit of a precarious situation. So let's go ahead and let's go and take a look at the news of the day. So really, really interesting news here. You can see it was actually posted. We'll actually go right in now. You can see it was posted by Choi Mihi, part of the Kaspa community. You could see a whole bunch of different things here, and then you could see it was actually reposted, or I guess quoted by Kaspa, like the official Kaspa account. You can see here crypto technology on its bleeding edge. Now I want to click into this because you can see a little bit more detail about what's going on here. So first off, you can see it's the vProgs. This is a new architecture called synchronously composable verifiable programs, or vProgs for short, which I do think is probably a better decision there. It will let developers deploy independent ZK powered programs directly on layer 1, control their own performance and costs, and still interact instantly and trustlessly with other programs. This means atomic cross-program transactions without leaving the layer 1, no roll-up fragmentation, one shared liquidity pool, proof-based trust between programs, and scalable without bloating layer 1 hardware. So again, this is really interesting because effectively what they're trying to do is kind of pull up a lot of the tech that we've actually seen hit some of these layer 2s in the Ethereum ecosystem. They're trying to pull it up into the Kaspa layer 1 so you can get things like ZK programming, you can get cross-program interactions without having to go down into your own chain-based state. There's a whole bunch of different things that are going on here that I think is super interesting. Now, of course, the fact that this has been kind of quoted and reposted by the Kaspa team is very interesting. I do wonder kind of exactly when we will see this. This is something though that is very, very interesting and cool. And I think that this is the type of tech that, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, that we've kind of started to come to expect from the Kaspa team. The only problem though is the usage is lacking, the adoption is lacking, and I think a lot of that is just because the tech is still in a generally more primitive state than what we've seen out of kind of other projects, just because they've had so many more years to build. And so there is going to be a little bit of some tech debt or some development delay that we will need to essentially see caught up as part of the Kaspa team. Now, the other thing that I wanted to see here from Kaspa is, let's go check the hash rate, right? I mean, we're looking at Bitcoin. The hash rate basically only goes up. It's consistently pushing new all-time highs. what are we seeing from Kaspa? Because that's been one of the big things from Kaspa as well, is it's got mining. It's, you know, it's kind of the best parts of Bitcoin with the best parts of kind of some of these more smaller, less secure layer ones. So let's go check it out. And the first thing that we are seeing, actually, not necessarily bad news, but slightly worrying in the sense that the hash rate has actually fallen from its all-time highs. You can see all-time highs here at just above like 1.53 exahashes. We are now down sitting at about 0.68 exahashes. So it's almost fallen by about 2/3 down to where we are currently. Obviously, a lot of this is going to be in large part due to the fall in the consolidation of price. When we were kind of back in this range, you could see here Kaspa was 14 cents, Kaspa was 20 cents. The XO hash rate is, you know, 0.07, 0.16. A lot of this type of stuff, when this was happening, Kaspa was unbelievably profitable for miners. We're now kind of at the opposite end of things where we had to get a little bit of a right sizing, right? I mean, when the XO hash rate is at, you know, 1.53 or something like that, and we see price at 12 cents, not nearly as good as we're seeing price at 14 cents with, you know, a tiny fraction of the hash rate being there. So this is something that I think, you know, we might be starting to see some of this right size. Prices kind of started to consolidate. The hash rate has kind of come down a little bit. Now, again, you know, ideally, similar to what we see out of Bitcoin, we want to see the hash rate continue to go up. That kind of forces some appreciation power onto the coin itself, because there's more electricity being pushed into the coin, and we haven't really seen that from Kaspa. We're seeing a lot of people turn their miners off and likely switch to a more profitable mining endeavor, maybe something like Dogecoin, maybe something like Litecoin, hard to say for sure. But you can also see this coming in the difficulty as well. The hash rate difficulty absolutely plummeting over here, which is kind of interesting to see as well. So a lot of what we're seeing out of kind of the mining stats have kind of come down a little bit. Not necessarily the best thing to see, but also not the end of the world. The other thing we want to be looking for here is like usage, though, right? I mean, if we're looking at average transactions per second, you can see here, obviously we had some kind of major spikes when we had seen like some of the KRC20s released and things like that. But if you look, we're sitting right now, or I guess as of a couple of days ago, at about 3 transactions per second. So not necessarily a horrible thing, but when you're doing 10 blocks per second, you don't even have 1 transaction per block currently. So, you know, obviously it's built for scale, but it does not need to handle scale at all at this point in time. And so that's another thing too, is we haven't really seen much of the like Kaspa community or the usage on Kaspa really take off. At this point, it is a super cool tech demo, right? I mean, that's basically what it is right now. This is a similar complaint in comparison to ICP as well. ICP also has interesting tech in slightly different ways than what Kaspa does, but the usage there has been struggling, particularly as of late. And so we want to see a lot of this stuff start to kind of switch, right? We want to start to see the transactions per second coming up. That means people are using the network. You cannot fake transactions per second. Well, you can, but you don't necessarily, I mean, they're not even being faked right now, right? So, I mean, that's kind of another thing all in itself. We also could see total fees paid. If we click on this, you could see, again, very low compared to what we've seen in the past. Still fees, you know, quite limited here. And then we also can see active addresses. We'll be able to see here. Active addresses are coming up a little bit, which is good to see, but we haven't seen kind of that consistent usage trending up into the right over time, which is ideally what we would want to see. So again, you can come here. This is Kaspalytics. You can come check out kind of any of the stats that you want to see. But overall, you know, I think, again, a lot of tech, really interesting, a lot of cool stuff happening there. But overall, we're just not really seeing that same type of adoption or interest actually kind of trickle down into the Kaspa ecosystem itself. So we'll have to see. Ultimately, you know, we want to see some of that type of stuff change. And until then, I don't know what we'll see price do really until we kind of see some of these major moves. Obviously, we can have limited pumps here and there, but the sustained moves to the upside, I think, are going to be somewhat limited until we do start to see some of that fundamental adoption and usage happening on chain. So overall, that's what I've got for you today. Again, really cool tech and things like that going on, but we do still need to kind of see that usage follow. Hopefully you found it useful. Of course, if you did, Like and subscribe does also always help. If you have any comments, questions, anything like that, just drop those in the comment section. I do try to read and respond to all of those. And then again, if you are looking to follow along with some of the trades that we have been doing or learn how to trade yourself, I do have all of those links to the exchanges in the description below. You can see I was using Weex, but we also have some really strong deposit bonuses for BTCC as well as BloFin if you are interested. So feel free to check it out. Like I said, none of this is financial advice. It's just all my opinions based on what I'm seeing in the crypto market and my experience. Hopefully, you can kind of take that for what it is and make sure that you are doing a sufficient amount of your own research as well. So anyway, thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.